Earth Science. This is Miss Satterley. I'm going to go over the first lecture, the branches of Earth Science. Hopefully by now you've made your note cards so you can start to study those. Again, there will be a quiz this Friday over this PowerPoint, so make sure you are preparing yourself for that. There's also a homework assignment that should be posted as well, going over these slides. Okay, there are three main branches of Earth Science: geology, oceanography, and astronomy. And we're going to talk about all three of these branches and the different types of scientists that go with each one. First one is geology. Geology is the largest branch. It's what our class is going to mainly focus on, the different types of geology, since this is Earth Science. Okay, what a geologist is. A geologist is a scientist that studies geology. Geology is the study of solid matter that makes up Earth, or it's also commonly called the study of planet Earth. Geo is a prefix that actually means Earth, and logis actually comes from logi, that means the study of, so that is where those words are coming from. So the study of Earth. Geology is going to include the composition of rocks and minerals, looking at interactions between surface structures, so earthquakes and volcanoes and other things like that, and also human uses for geology and other things with the environment. The first scientist that kind of falls into a sub-branch of geology would be a mineralogist. Mineralogists are going to study the composition and structure of minerals. So this is a picture down here of an individual that is going through a river looking for different types of minerals in the sediment. And then this is a picture of some different types of minerals that are actually harmful to us. One of the things that we will actually look at this year is galena. Galena is a type of lead-based mineral. You can handle it as long as you wash your hands afterwards and you don't eat it. But I do have some pieces of galena. I'm going to show you guys an example of a mineral that's actually on our most deadly minerals list. This is galena. I don't know if you guys can see that. So galena is actually a lead-based mineral. If you notice, it looks like a cube, and that has to do with the cleavage pattern or how it breaks. We'll actually get into minerals in quite some detail in a few weeks, and we'll get to see some of these as I go over them with you. But I just wanted to show you one today. Again, this is galena. It's a cube-shaped, and it is a lead-based mineral. A volcanologist is an individual that's going to study volcanoes. There's different types of volcanoes. We will learn about the different types of volcanoes. I will have a video that we'll watch about one of the deadliest volcanoes as well, and we'll look at how those function and process. Seismologist. A seismologist is an individual that studies earthquakes. They are going to look at the forces that create earthquakes. If you look down here, this is a picture that shows the epicenter and focus. A focus is the point underneath where the earthquake starts, and then the epicenter is the place on the surface that actually corresponds with the focus. This is a picture of the devastation of an earthquake. It can cause a lot of problems with structures and homes. It can be very bad for a lot of major cities if they live along a fault line. And up here, this is a scientist that's actually looking at a seismograph. A seismograph is a picture of earthquake waves. Paleontologist. The paleontologist studies fossils and prehistoric life forms. We will have a section on fossils, so we will look at different types of fossils, the different ways that they form, and some prehistoric creatures. So here's a scientist with an ankylosaurus. And then over here, there are some individuals that are digging out some dinosaur bones. A geochronologist is our next one. Geochronologist studies the age of rocks and determines how different rock layers form. So rocks are going to form from sediment. Well, there's different types of rocks. Sedimentary rocks are one of them. Sediment is going to lay down, it's going to become compacted, and those different layers are going to have different ages to them. So the layers on the bottom are going to be older than other layers. Now, sometimes folding can happen because of plate tectonics, so you might have a mountain that actually has rock layers that are very, very old and other things. So we'll actually look at the different layering of rocks and how that works as well. So a climatologist is an individual that's going to study the climate and how it's changed based on human activity. So you can see from the pictures, they are studying different types of climates using some equipment that helps collect temperature variations, moisture, and other things that are important for climatologists. Okay, meteorologists. Meteorologists are individuals that are going to study weather patterns, clouds, hurricanes, and tornadoes. They're going to look at floods as well. So the picture below here, we have a flood, there's lightning, a tornado, and then just some cloud structures. Meteorologists are seen on TV, so all of your local stations are going to have meteorologists to help predict the weather so people can prepare for any kind of bad weather that may show up. A limnologist is our next one. A limnologist is an individual that studies inland waters, rivers, and lakes. They're going to study the water samples, see the chemicals in the water. They may look at wildlife, but they're going to focus more on the actual water itself. Our next one is a hydrogeologist. I'm going to look at a couple root words here. So hydro means water and geo means earth. So this word literally means the study of earth water. So a hydrogeologist is going to focus on underwater water that's found between soil and rocks. So wells are a way that individuals can actually access water that is underground, and that's a water source for some people. So they're going to take samples from water that's in the ground, so they have to drill for these water samples and study those, the composition of the water. Next one is a cartographer. A cartographer is a person who makes maps of Earth's surface. So they're going to look at, there's different types of maps. We'll actually have a week that we will look at different types of maps. Maps are going to include maps that have countries and regions where it's just the names of different countries. You also can have maps that have topographic lines, so they're going to show elevation. And there's also maps that have where water sources are at, mountains, volcanoes, and all of those things. So that is what a cartographer is going to do. Next one is a geographer. Geographer, we're really not going to discuss much this year. Geography kind of falls a little bit into social science, but geography is an individual that's going to study features of Earth's surface. Geographers are going to work hand in hand with cartographers. They're going to map the different features, and then a cartographer might take that information to actually physically make a map. Stratigrapher. This is a person that is going to examine layers of rocks beneath Earth's surface. So there's an individual in the first picture that you can see there's very obvious layers of rocks behind her. So that is what they're going to look at, the different ages of rocks, maybe organisms that are found. There's also different principles that we'll discuss this year when we get into, it's going to be later this semester. Okay, glaciologist. A glaciologist is an individual that's going to study glaciers and ice. Look at the composition of glaciers, maybe if there's any contaminants in the area, and other things like that. Okay, so that is geology. Now we're going to look at oceanography. Oceanography is going to be anything that has to do with the ocean environment. So just a general oceanographer is going to study everything in the ocean. Now there are two branches of oceanography. Our first one is a physical oceanographer. Physical oceanographers are going to study the ocean processes themselves. This can include waves and ocean currents. So this individual has some kind of instrument that they're looking at the current of the water that they're on. Our next one is actually a chemical oceanographer. Chemical oceanographers study natural elements in ocean waters and pollutants. So this second picture here is actually a structure that's going to collect different samples, and it may look at the types of chemicals that is found in that water source. Next one is marine geologist. This kind of falls under geology as well, but I put it with oceanography because it is in the ocean. A marine geologist is a scientist that's going to use geology to study Earth's processes under the oceans. So there are earthquakes, mountains, and trenches under the oceans, and we will look at all of these things later on. And individuals that study these structures are called marine geologists. Now, astronomy is the last major branch of earth science. Astronomy is the study of the solar system and the universe. Also, it's going to include our sun and all of the other stars, moons, and planets. So all of these things fall under astronomy. The first picture here is an astronomer that has a telescope, and this telescope is used to help look at different objects that are out in space. Planetary geologists, again, much like marine geologists, it can fall under geology as well. I put it here because it focuses on things out in space. So planetary geologist is actually a scientist that's going to study and compare the other planets' geologies with Earth structures. One of the planets that's studied extensively is going to be Mars. So they've had samples. Rovers have been on the surface of Mars, and we've learned quite a bit about its surface. And those scientists are going to compare the different planets to our own planet. Also, I do have a section with life science. So life science is more biology, but I am going to go over a couple different types of life sciences. First one is a biologist. A biologist is an individual that's going to study life. So biology is defined as the scientific study of life. Lots of different things fall under biology. Some of you may have taken biology, some of you may take it next year, but biology includes all types of organisms, DNA, cells, ecosystems. So that is what biology is. Now, there are different branches within biology. Our first one is environmental biology. Environmental biology studies the way humans interact with the earth and those effects of those interactions. So how humans affect the environment is someone that looks at, or someone who is called an environmental biologist. Now, there's another one called a biogeographer. Biogeographers are going to actually study how organisms have migrated over their evolutionary history. So biogeography is a branch of science that investigates changes in populations in relation to place over time. So this is actually a picture that shows you some different fossil organisms that have been found. So the continents, the way we have them today, they have not always been that way. There's something called plate tectonics. We will discuss plate tectonics this semester. But all of the continents actually used to be closer together, and they're thought to have one time been all joined together. So there are actually different fossils found on different continents that are the same age and the same species, and that's because they were once joined physically. So that is a picture. That is what a biogeographer will do. Look and see how species, their fossils, where they're at, and how they may have migrated when they were living. And our last one for today is an ecologist. An ecologist is a scientist that studies interactions between organisms and their environment. We will get into ecology in a little bit in earth science. We'll do that next semester. We'll look at major ecosystems that have the same kind of environment over a large area. And there's different types of biomes, and we'll get into that next semester. Okay, that is the last slide for today. This is the first lecture. You should have had your note cards done by now, which I did mention that at the beginning of this video. Also, there's a homework assignment that goes with this, so make sure you have watched the video and you've added anything to it. If there's anything you don't understand, please contact me in some way. Your homework assignment is open right now. It should be on Google Classroom, and it is due tomorrow, so make sure you do submit that. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know.